it's Imani. Today I'm gonna be telling a story, and that's because someone on my asked me to tell a story, and I think that my life is pretty boring. There's nothing really that's super interesting about me, but my story is gonna be on depression, and I wanted to do this because I think that it's something that's really important, and it's something that's not talked about enough because a lot of people think that it's just general sadness, and it's not. It's so much more than that, and I would know because I suffer from recurring depression. And telling this story is such a risk because I know that people are going to look at me differently now because of it. You risk people thinking that you are saying you have depression for attention, or people will think that you're overly fragile and they can't say anything to you. But people with depression are just like everybody else. I'm not somebody different just because I'm admitting that I have depression. Like, I don't expect people to treat me differently, and it would honestly make me really upset if people did decide to treat me differently because of it, because I'm still the same person that I was before I told people. Anywho, the first time I realized I had depression, I was in 7th grade, and it was after my mom got arrested and she went to jail for about 9 months. My mom going to jail now isn't something new. She gets arrested a lot. But when you're 12 and your mom goes to jail, it's something that's really hard. And more often than not, depression is caused by a catastrophic event that happens to you, and that was just my catastrophic event that triggered it. And depression isn't something that's easy to understand. And I mean, not everybody who has depression is suicidal or has anxiety. Like, depression can just be so much as you just want to stay home and not be around people, and you just need a minute to like recover from what happened to you. But then there's depression in the worst case, which was mine, and it causes you to be suicidal and attempt suicide and self-harm and have anxiety and social anxiety and not be able to function on a daily basis. And that was me for about 3.5 years, almost until my sophomore year. Like, mid-sophomore year is when it was just really bad. Things were always really hard for me. It took everything out of me to get up and go to school every day, and I never wanted to eat. All I could ever do is like sleep. And it's hard because you know it's ridiculous. You know that normal people can function on a daily basis with like something bad happening to them. They can grieve and get over it. But then with depression, it's like it completely takes over your entire life, and you always think the worst of everything. Depression makes you feel like you're worthless. It makes you feel like you're nothing, and you get thoughts that tell you that you don't deserve to live and stuff like that. And it sucks. Like, it's shitty, to say the least. But I want people to know that it is possible to get over depression. It takes time and it's hard, but it's something that can happen. And in my case, I do have depression still. It's recurring depression, and that means that normally I'm okay and things are fine and I'm happy and stuff. And then there's days where I have depressive episodes, and that's when it goes back to me being ridiculously depressed and not wanting to go to school and not wanting to eat and not wanting to do classwork or talk to anybody, and I isolate myself from people. So the people that go to school with me, if you see me acting like that on certain days, it's because of depression, and it's not something that you want to tell people about. It's, to say the least, a lot of people are embarrassed about it, and for years I have been so embarrassed about my depression, and it's not something to be embarrassed about. It's normal. It's a secret that we all share. Nobody ever comes out and says, I have depression. Asking for help is hard. You don't feel like you're worth getting help, and that's not the case at all. People with depression are severely beautiful people, and we ask ourselves these existential questions that nobody else wants to ask. Like, what is the real meaning of life? What is the value of a human life? And most people don't think about those questions. And if you are dealing with someone who has depression and they're always thinking on the bad side, like, oh, I'm not good enough and we're all gonna die eventually, so let's not end, like, why not just end it now? And what you need to say to those people is, that's true, but why not focus on what we should have for breakfast? Like, you always have to help them think on the bright side, but you can't force a depressive to get over it. Telling somebody with depression to get over it is probably the worst thing you could ever do. You can't force somebody to recover from depression. It's something that you have to deal with inside yourself. And it's an inside thing. It's not something that you can have somebody else do for you. And if you are someone with depression, I understand. It's hard. And you think that you're going to be this way forever, and you won't be. There's always going to be a brighter side. Things are always going to get better. Even if it seems like the world is ending, it's not. And if you are contemplating suicide, please don't. There's so much in this world to live for, and depression is not one of those things. Depression can be cured, but it has to start with you. And if you are one of those people who walks around saying, oh, you're not depressed, you're probably just sad, it's not something that you should be doing, because that's the worst thing you could say to a depressive. It makes them feel like they're more worthless than they already thought. Like, oh yeah, maybe I am overreacting. It's not like we don't already understand that it's a ridiculous illness. No one should ever have to feel like they can't get up and go do something with their lives. But it happens. It's real. And it needs to be talked about more often. And I know from experience that not telling someone only makes it worse. And attempting suicide is not anything that I'd ever want somebody to have to go through. Because when you fail, then you feel like you're even more of a failure. And it's just this endless cycle of sadness that you can't get over. It seems like happiness is so, so far away. And I want people to know that it's there. Happiness can be achieved, but it all starts with you. I'm gonna mess up my makeup. Ugh.